Hi there, it's Mrs. T. Today I'm going to show you how to draw some dandelions. So I have posted for you in Canvas this little step-by-step guide that I got from Art Projects for Kids. So I'm going to use the steps for creating just one dandelion to practice that. And then I'll talk a little bit later about turning that into a dandelion artwork. So step one is to lightly draw a circle-ish shape where you want the dandelion to be. So I'm doing it lightly because this is not going to end up being part of the dandelion. It's just going to be the outer edges of where all those parts are. So once I've done my circle-ish shape, I find the center and make another circle-ish shape in there. And this is going to be the center of the dandelion flower that's gotten all dried up. And from here, I'm going to make a line that comes down to the bottom of my picture, and another one right next to that with a little bit of space. This is going to be the stem. I'm going to try to keep it the same distance apart. I've got a little bit thicker down there at the bottom. That's why I'm practicing. I'm probably not going to make this one into a final artwork. I'm just practicing the steps. So in my guide here, it shows me to then make some lines that go straight up from the stem, and then one to the right and one to the left, kind of like a clock. It's like 12 o'clock, 3 o'clock, the stem is at 6 o'clock, and then this is over here at 9 o'clock. So if this is the bottom one, I'm gonna go up here, and then I'm gonna go over here, and then over there. And then I'm gonna do 2 more in each of those spaces. So you have to do what I call a guesstimate about what 1/3 of the way over is. So I'll do one there, and then one more there. Kind of reminds me of slicing up a pizza. Now I like to rotate when I'm working on things that are round so I can make sure I'm spacing things evenly. You might find a system that works better for you, but I want to put 2 more lines in between what I already have there. So there's 1, and there's 2, and they're pretty equally distanced. So there's 1 and 2. Okay, so now I really don't need this outer edge anymore. You can leave it. It's not going to show later if it's really light, if I outline over this, but if it's bothering you, you can erase it. Now that I've erased that, you can kind of see the framework for my dried out dandelion. On each of these lines, I'm going to add 4 really small lines. So that's almost like a letter Y, and then 2 more inside of that. So a wide Y and then a little V inside of there. Okay, once I have all of those added on, now I'm going to go in between every one of these lines with a shorter line. So right in between there. Now this type of pattern, when you have something that starts with a center and the same thing repeats going all the way around, it's called a radial pattern. So it goes around a center point. A lot of things in nature have natural radial patterns. Flowers are one of those things. So I've got long, short, long, short, long, short. On the end of each of these, I'm going to do 3 little lines. Or you could just leave that one that's there and add 2 more. That one looks too short though. So 1, 2, 3. Again, I do better if I rotate. There is 1 pencil dandelion. I'm realizing now that this is kind of light. So if I was happy with where that is, I could simply go over it and make it darker. So what I'm going to suggest you do right now is practice just making 1 dandelion but practice that like 3 or maybe even 4 times. So you get really good at making one. And then my next step will be to show you how to turn it into an artwork with several flowers. Okay, I'm back and I've just started doing the layout for my dandelion artwork. I started by making a really light circle. It's so light you might not be able to see it. So I did one here, and then I put the center of the dandelion and made that stem coming down to the bottom of my picture. I have another one here. It's a little bit taller. Here's the center, here's the stem. I'm gonna fit one more in over here on the right. And remember, these are just circle-ish shapes. They don't have to be a perfect circle. I don't think any flower in nature is made of perfect geometric shapes. But I've got just an outline there. And in the center of that is the center of the flower. I'm gonna give this stem a little bend also. Now, depending on how confident you are in your radial pattern skills, you might think about what you want your finished artwork to look like. Sometimes doing the artwork in black ink has a nice look, and you can draw directly with the black ink. So I'll do one of those this way right now. I'm simply going to outline the center, and I may go back later and fill this in, or it might just be too thick to do that. So I'll do it with lines and see how it looks. And rather than drawing every single little dandelion wish with pencil first, I'm pretty confident that I can make these lines go in the same spot as I had them before in pencil on my practice dandelions. So I've got those 4 quadrants, and now inside each one, I'm gonna do 2 more. 2 more here. Again, think about slicing a pizza. I didn't turn my paper that time. I did okay. Now at the end of each of those, 1, 2, 3, 4. And then we have to do those shorter lines in between. I got all the spaces that time, and then 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Now, something else the little tutorial shows us is to put a little dot on the end of each of those. So that might be kind of fun. If I'm using pen, that's pretty easy to add those little dots on. So I finished one dandelion. It would be kind of fun to think about coming up, maybe picking this flower and blowing on it when you make a wish. So what would happen, some of those would be coming off of the flower, and then they'd have those little lines at the end, maybe those little dots on the end. The wind is blowing them away now. So one flower is finished. I'm simply going to finish these 2 the same way. Now there's lots of ways you can make your own artwork. I showed you before the one I made on construction paper, and this is done with colored pencil. So white colored pencil shows up nicely on a darker paper. So if you have those supplies, you could use those materials. There's a sample posted in Canvas where an artist has used a black Sharpie that's permanent ink and then used watercolor paint in the background. So depending on what supplies you have, once you learn to draw the dandelion, you can arrange them all kinds of ways and you can use different kinds of materials. I am going to give you one design recommendation, and you can see that even our little tutorial shows it this way. Odd numbers make nice arrangements. It's a little bit harder to balance them out if you just have 2 or if you try to put 4 in there. So I'm going to suggest you stick with an odd number. If you make them big, 3 is a good number. If you make your dandelion smaller, maybe you want to have 5 in your picture. But you can finish, I used ink today, you can finish any way you like on the final artwork, and I look forward to seeing your drawings.